Good morning, children. Already we have learnt metallurgy part 1, in which you must have studied what are ores, what are minerals, what are the differences between them, how to concentrate ore, what are the various techniques employed in converting the concentrated ore into impure metal. In this video, we will be learning about thermodynamic principles of metallurgy, Ellingham diagram, observations of Ellingham diagram, its limitations, what are the applications of Ellingham diagram, and purification techniques, which is called refining techniques of metals. Thermodynamic principles of metallurgy. In thermodynamics, we know that the change in Gibbs free energy delta G is given by the expression delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. And this delta H is nothing but enthalpy change and T is the temperature, delta S is the entropy change. All this we know. And also we know that for a spontaneous reaction, this Gibbs free energy change should be negative. And if you want to convert the metal oxide to metal, we are supposed to employ one reducing agent. The choice of reducing agent depends on the value of delta G. For a particular reaction of converting a metal oxide to metal using a reducing agent, we will calculate the delta G value. Suppose that delta G value is minus 55. Now I am changing the reducing agent. Now I am converting the metal oxide to metal. Again I am calculating delta G value. Now if the value is minus 100, which value is more negative? Yes, in the second case we are getting minus 100 as the delta G value. So we are selecting a reducing agent in such a way that it has large negative delta G value. So the choice of any reducing agent for a metal oxide to become metal, the metal oxide to metal reaction should give a delta G value which is more negative. What is Ellingham diagram? A plot drawn between temperature and delta G naught value. Temperature in the x-axis and delta G naught value in the y-axis. A plot, if it is drawn between temperature in the x-axis and delta G naught in the y-axis, is called as Ellingham diagram. We know that delta G naught is equal to minus RT ln Kp. We will take that in the y-axis and temperature will take in the x-axis. In which case you will get a straight lines. The slope value will give us delta S value, that is entropy change, and the y-intercept will give the value of delta H. The graphical representation of variation of standard Gibbs free energy of a reaction for the formation of various metal oxides with temperature is called Ellingham diagram. Why should we draw this Ellingham diagram? From this what do we infer? From this we can easily identify or find out whether the metal oxide is stable and up to which temperature the metal oxide will be stable and at what temperature the metal oxide can be converted to metal and which are the reducing agents employed for converting a particular metal oxide to metal. What are the observations of Ellingham diagram? If you see this graph, you can see that magnesium consumes oxygen to become magnesium oxide and the slope of this graph seems to be positive. So, for most of the metal oxide formation, the slope value is positive. You know why? Here, oxygen gas is consumed during this reaction. We know very well that when a gas is converted to solid or when a gas is converted to liquid, the randomness decreases. So, if the randomness decreases, delta S value becomes negative. We know that delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. Minus T delta S should be multiplied by another negative value. So minus of minus, it will become plus. So delta G will be equal to delta H plus C delta S. Now the slope value will become positive. So for most of the metal oxide formation, the slope value is positive. Now you are seeing the graph for the formation of carbon monoxide. What do you observe? Here what is the type of slope? Is it positive slope or negative slope? Yes, here the slope is negative. When will you get a negative slope? When delta S is positive, then T delta S value will become negative. So the slope will be obviously negative. So when will you get a positive entropy value? When there is increase in randomness. So here in the formation of carbon monoxide, if you see 1 mole of oxygen gas is converted to 2 moles of carbon monoxide gas. So we know that entropy increases when the number of moles of reactant is less than number of moles of products. If the number of moles of gaseous product is more, obviously the randomness increases or delta S will become positive. If you multiply, that is if you multiply this positive value with minus T delta S. Delta S is positive and minus T delta S will become negative only. Delta H minus T delta S. So the slope value is actually negative. If you see this graph, as the temperature increases, the delta G value keeps on increasing. It is ascending. Even it becomes 0 at particular temperature, it increases even to a positive value. What does this mean? If the delta G value is negative, the metal oxide is stable. We know that more negative delta G value, more stable is the metal oxide. If the delta G value is positive, then the metal oxide is unstable. That means when the temperature is increased to a maximum level, metal oxide becomes metal easily. So as the temperature increases, the metal oxide starts decomposing to give metal easily. Metal oxide is unstable at higher temperature. So when you increase the temperature, the metal oxide can easily decompose to become metal. That is what is shown in this graph. If the metal oxide is heated to higher temperature, the delta G value becomes less negative and so it is less stable, the metal oxide is less stable and so it can be easily decomposed to metal. If you see the graph of mercuric oxide and magnesium oxide, the graph is not a straight line. It is a straight line to up to a particular temperature, then the line bends. What does it mean? The point where the line bends is called as transition temperature. It may be a melting point or the metal oxide might have started evaporating. So there is a sudden change in the slope of the graph at a particular temperature of the metal oxide, which is called as phase transition temperature, or the change is called as phase transition. Metal oxide, which might be in solid state, would have become liquid, or liquid would have become gas. There will be a phase transition which is shown in this graph. What are the applications of this Ellingham diagram? If you observe this diagram, already we know that Ellingham diagram is a graph drawn between temperature in the x-axis and delta G naught in the y-axis. Okay, we know that a metal oxide is stable only at a high negative delta G value. If you see a line, a straight line given in the graph, that straight line is actually a graph for the formation of carbon dioxide. And there is a slanting line above that 0. Above 0, you have a line which is meant for either silver oxide or mercuric oxide. It is lying in the upper part of the diagram, which means the metal oxide is stable even at a very low temperature. Silver oxide or mercuric oxide will start decomposing even at the temperatures of around 600 to 700 Kelvin. What does this graph indicates? It indicates that these oxides are very unstable even at moderate temperatures, and they will decompose on heating even in the absence of any reducing agent. The metal oxides like silver oxide and mercuric oxide, they don't require any reducing agent to become metal. Even simple heating will help them to become silver or mercury. The second application of Ellingham diagram is that it is used to predict the thermodynamic feasibility of a reduction of oxides of one metal by another metal. If you take this graph, I have given you 4 lines. You can see calcium lying at the bottom, then magnesium, aluminium and chromium. Actual fact is low reduces high. That means any metal which is lying at the bottom portion of the Ellingham diagram is capable of reducing the metal oxides lying above it, which means calcium can reduce magnesium oxide, aluminium oxide and chromium oxide. Magnesium can reduce aluminium oxide and chromium oxide. But does this magnesium reduce calcium oxide? No, because calcium lies below magnesium. So magnesium cannot reduce calcium oxide. So we can infer that aluminium can be a better reducing agent for chromic oxide. What we have learnt in aluminothermic process, aluminium was used to reduce chromic oxide. But can we use chromium to reduce aluminium oxide? No, because chromium is on the upper side of the graph. So any metal can reduce the oxides of the other metal that are located above it in the diagram. So low reduces high. The metal lying below can reduce the metal lying above it. Can you understand? Yes. If you observe this graph, there is a straight line which is indicating the formation of carbon dioxide from carbon. It is called as carbon line. Only that line in the Ellingham diagram is straight, perpendicular to y-axis and parallel to x-axis. All other metal oxides line are actually slanting. That means as the temperature increases, the delta G value for all other metal oxides keep on increasing and it becomes less negative. But in this case, if you see carbon line, this carbon line can cut almost all other metal oxide line, which means at high temperature, carbon is capable of reducing all the metal oxides. At high temperature, carbon can be used to reduce almost all the metal oxides to metal. Thermodynamically favorable conditions for the reduction of iron oxide by carbon. What does it mean? At which temperature can we use carbon to reduce iron oxide? If you see this graph, iron oxide line and carbon monoxide formation line intersects at 1000 degrees Celsius, which means below 1000 degrees Celsius, iron oxide line lies below carbon monoxide line, which says that iron oxide is more stable below 1000 degrees Celsius. Above 1000 degrees Celsius, carbon line cuts iron oxide and becomes more negative. That means carbon monoxide line is below iron oxide line. So above 1000 degrees Celsius, carbon can be used to reduce iron oxide to iron, or coke can be a better reducing agent above 1000 degrees Celsius for reducing iron oxide. even with the help of pre-energy calculation, we can confirm that the reduction of iron oxide by coke is thermodynamically favorable. If you see the equation 1, iron is oxidized to iron oxide, where the delta G value is minus 350 kilojoules per mole. In the second equation, coke is oxidized to carbon monoxide, where the delta G value is minus 480 kilojoules per mole. What is our ultimate aim? We are supposed to reduce iron oxide to iron using coke. So iron oxide should be the reactant. So we are interchanging, or we are changing the first equation the other way. That is reverting first equation. You will have 2FeO giving 2Fe plus O2. If you revert the equation, obviously delta G value also will change its sign. So delta G becomes plus 350 kilojoules per mole. Now if you couple second and third equation, in the reactant side we have one oxygen, in third equation in product side we have one oxygen molecule, both gets cancelled. Then FeO2 FeO plus 2C will give you 2Fe plus 2CO. Now you will be adding third and fourth equation, second and third equation. So minus 480 should be added with plus 350. Minus 480 plus 350 will be minus 130 kilojoules per mole. This is for 2 moles of iron oxide. For 1 mole of iron oxide, the standard free energy change will be minus 130 by 2, which is nothing but minus 65 kilojoules per mole. We know that if the delta G value is negative, then the reaction is feasible. Here delta G value is minus 65 kilojoules per mole, which means this confirms that the reduction of iron oxide with carbon is thermodynamically favorable. What are the limitations of Ellingham diagram? Ellingham diagram gives the thermodynamic feasibility of a reaction, but it does not tell anything about the rate of the reaction. It does not say anything about the speed with which a reaction takes place. Second one is, it does not take into account any side reactions that occurs along with the main reactions. Third one is, it considers all the reactions to be in equilibrium. That is, reactant becoming product is a equilibrium reaction, considering that the delta G value is calculated. But in all cases, the reactions are not in equilibrium. What is electrochemical principle of metallurgy? Already we know that delta G is equal to minus NF E naught. If E naught is nothing but electrode potential of the coupled reduction reaction. If E naught value is positive, then obviously delta G naught will become negative. If delta G naught is negative, then the reaction is spontaneous. So, when you mix two reactive metals, the reaction is coupled in such a way that the EMF of the net redox reaction becomes positive. If the E naught value is positive, delta G will be negative, then the reaction is spontaneous. If you take copper and treat it with silver nitrate solution, copper metal will displace silver ion from silver nitrate. Silver will get precipitated. The reason is copper is more reactive than silver. So copper goes into the solution and silver gets precipitated. The same way, if you treat copper sulfate with zinc, zinc will go into solution and copper will get precipitated, which means copper is less reactive than zinc. When a more reactive metal is added to the solution containing the less reactive metal ion, the metal which is more reactive will go into the solution. When you compare copper and silver, silver is less reactive, so it becomes a precipitate. Copper goes into the solution. If you compare copper and zinc, zinc goes into the solution, which means zinc is more reactive than copper. Hall-Héroult process of extraction of aluminium in an electrochemical method. We'll take cathode as the iron tank lined with carbon. The anode is nothing but carbon blocks immersed in the electrolyte. And the electrolyte used is, we know we got alumina from bauxite ore. To that we'll add molten cryolite. and we'll add 10% calcium chloride solution. This calcium chloride solution is added to lower the melting point to about 1270 Kelvin. What are the reactions taking place? Actually, this alumina will undergo ionization to give aluminium ion and oxide ion. At cathode, reduction takes place. This aluminium ion, Al3 plus ion, will take up electron to become aluminium, liquid molten state, and at anode, oxidation takes place. This oxide ion loses electron to become oxygen. So the net reaction is aluminium ion reacts with oxide ion and carbon blocks of the anode. You will get molten aluminium, then carbon dioxide gas. Since carbon acts as the anode, usually carbon is consumed by the oxygen. As and when the carbon monoxide is formed and carbon dioxide is formed, carbon rods become smaller in size. So during the electrolysis process, usually we will replace the anode. In the beginning of the lesson, we studied that metallurgical process involves concentration of the ore, then extraction of the crude metal, and the third step is refining process. Now we are going to see the refining process. That is, crude metal has to become pure metal. So what is refining? Removal of impurities associated with the crude metal is called refining. This refining can be of any of the three methods dealt with. The first one is distillation. Here this method is employed for low boiling volatile metals, that is like zinc and mercury. They have the boiling point of around 1180 Kelvin, or mercury has a boiling point of 630 Kelvin. So only for low boiling volatile metals we can use this distillation technique. Here the impure metal is evaporated and the vapors are condensed and cooled to get the pure metal. In liquefaction, the molten metal is actually placed on the sloping hearth of a reverberative furnace and it is heated just above the melting point in the absence of air. What will happen is the impure metal becomes pure and the molten pure metal flows down, leaving behind the impurities. The molten metal can be collected and solidified. This method can be useful to remove the impurities which has high melting point compared to the metal. The metal should have low melting point and the impurities must have high melting point. For example, if you consider tin and lead, tin has high melting point of 904 Kelvin whereas lead 600 Kelvin. So lead can be easily removed from tin. Same way mercury and bismuth. Bismuth has high melting point, so bismuth can be removed from mercury. In electrolytic refining, we will take anode impure metal, cathode pure metal, and the electrolyte is actually aqueous solution of the salt of the metal. When electricity is passed, what will happen is from anode, pure metal goes and attaches to cathode. So the impurities will settle down as anode mud. So here electrolytic refining of silver is also given. We'll take pure silver as a cathode and impure silver rod is taken as anode. Electrolytic solution is acidified aqueous solution of silver nitrate. When electricity is passed, at anode, as usual, we know that oxidation takes place. So silver metal, from the impure silver metal, electrons are lost, and at the cathode, the electrons are gained by the silver ions present in the solution. They gets attached to the cathode as pure silver metal. Zone refining. The principle of zone refining is fractional crystallization. When an impure metal is melted and allowed to solidify, the impurities will stay in the molten region. The impurities are more soluble in the melt than in the solid state. In this process, we are taking the molten metal in the form of a rod, and a mobile induction is allowed to move from left to right. When the heater is slowly moved from one end to the other, pure metal crystallizes while the impurities will move on to the adjacent molten zone, which is formed due to the movement of the heater. As the heater moves, The molten zone containing impurities also moves along with that. The process repeated several times by moving the heater in the same direction again and again to achieve the desired purity level. This process is carried out in an inert gas atmosphere to prevent oxidation of metals. This method is mainly used for semiconductors like germanium, silicon, gallium, etc. In vapor phase refining method, the metal is treated with a suitable reagent which is forming a volatile compound of the metal. This volatile compound of the metal is actually easily decomposed when you raise the temperature. For example, we can refine nickel by vapor phase method, the process called as Mons process. Nickel is treated with carbon monoxide gas. The impure metal with carbon monoxide gives nickel tetracarbonyl, which is a volatile compound at 350 Kelvin. When you raise the temperature to 460 Kelvin, this nickel tetracarbonyl will become pure nickel solid. In Van Arkel method, we can refine either titanium or zirconium. Impure titanium is treated with iodine crystals at 550 Kelvin. We'll get the volatile titanium tetraiodide. This titanium tetraiodide vapor on passing through tungsten filament heated at 1800 Kelvin gives us pure titanium solid. Thank you, children. Hope this video will help you to prepare for your board exam. Metallurgy lesson is complete if you complete learning applications of metals from the textbook. Applications of metals is actually self-explanatory, so I didn't specify in this video. If you like this channel, you can subscribe for more videos. Use this video purposefully. Repeatedly you can watch it, you can learn from it, and you can aim for better marks in the board exams. Thank you.